You know, that's a $2,000 drop.
Clerks will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Present.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Pastor Eric Owens, Associate Pastor of Arlington Baptist Temple in Arlington, Texas. After the invocation, please remain standing for the pledges. Go ahead and come. I'm sorry. Go ahead and come forward here. Thank you, Reverend.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here to this day. We thank you for the day. I pray for our Honorable Judge Whitley. I pray for each and every commissioner that's here today as well, all of those that fill this room, the decisions that will be made today that have benefit our county, that benefit our communities. I pray, Lord, that you fill each and every one with wisdom. I pray that the decisions that are made would bring honor and glory to you. We praise you, Lord, for all you've done for us even this day, and will continue to do for us this day. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Pastor Owens, thank you for coming out. I think you have with you a guest today who's about to exit stage left.
This is my son, Andrew Owens.
Andrew, welcome. We appreciate y'all coming out today. Thank you very much. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have 4 announcements for you as it relates to the agenda this morning. Under the Administrator section, item 8A1, there is a new court communication in your red folder as it relates to that particular item. And since that time, we've received, or we have another copy that we're going to be providing to the clerk that has some 2 minor non-substantive changes on the first page. Also under the Administrator section, item 8A5, that item will be considered after closed session today. Members of the Court, if we can go to Transportation, item 8K3. This is the LAPAFA for Bowman Springs Road. There is a revised court communication in your red folder this morning as it relates to that particular item. And then finally, members of the Court, under briefing, item 11B. This concerns Chapter 393 of the Texas Transportation Code. We will discuss that particular item also after closed session today. And, Your Honor, and members of the Court, just take a moment to ask, Ms. Price has someone who she would like to introduce to the Court at this time.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. It was nice to see everybody yesterday at the beginning of the River Vision project. A little hot, but nice.
It was nice in the shade.
We were right in the sun. I wanted to take a minute this morning to introduce you to the man who's either going to make my life easy or just miserable. Our new chief appraiser, as you all know, John Marshall is retiring the 31st, and Jeff Law is our new chief appraiser. The board went through an extensive search, and Jeff is an excellent candidate. He'll be a great chief appraiser. I've known him for about 8 years. He teaches classes for me when need be, although I think that day is probably gone with his duties at Tarrant. Jeff has been the chief appraiser in Hood County and is now with us. So this is Jeff Law.
Jeff, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to meet each and every one of you. I look forward to a long-lasting relationship. And, of course, if there are any questions that you have of the appraisal district, please feel free to call me, and let's talk about them and resolve them.
I'm sure we'll call you every
I'll
once in
put
a while.
that in my phone.
I'm sure we'd all love to sit and chat with you. Welcome to Tarrant County.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Anything you need, please let me know.
Thank you, bet.
And Commissioner Brooks, Jeff lives in your precinct.
We won't hold that against you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Showtime. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of July 22nd.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Proclamations, Commissioner Brooks.
I have a proclamation for ratification only, Your Honor. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, under the Administrator section, Item 1, we were requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve the First Amendment to restricted covenants between Tarrant County Hospital District and Columbia Plaza Medical Center of Fort Worth subsidiary, LP, and the agreement of covenants and restrictions between Tarrant County Hospital District and Columbia Plaza Medical Center of Fort Worth subsidiary, LP, concerning the purchase of the St. Joe Property Hospital. This is in reference to Court Order 103018. What this does, this removes, or this provides for the removal of any type of restrictive covenants that for the use of that property once it's acquired by JPS.
Congratulations and thank you. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and several seconds. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And please extend our thanks to everyone who worked so hard on working this out. I know it was not an easy thing to do, but it was in the best interest of the people of Tarrant County. So extend our appreciation to Plaza as well as the good folk at JPS.
Your Honor, members of the court, if we could go to item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve the submission of a grant application to TXU for the TXU Energy Low Income Energy Efficiency Program. Let me explain what this program is. TXU is offering monies to its customers to basically improve the energy efficiency of their homes. This is something that community development has been working on. The thing that is somewhat different than this, really two things. First of all, while it appears in the court communication that the application is for $10,000, actually it's going to be a multiple request for funds. TXU has basically stated that they're going to be handing them or providing the money in $10,000 increments. The second issue is that while CDBG, or Community Development, normally deals with the urban county, in other words, those areas in the county that exclude some cities like Fort Worth and Arlington. In this particular project, we're including Arlington also as a member of that process.
Fort Worth already has theirs?
Fort Worth already has theirs, yes. And so this will not only include the urban county consortium, but it will also include that consortium plus the city of Arlington. Staff is recommending approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the court accept a JAG grant from the Governor's Office Criminal Justice Division as it relates to the Family Drug Court Program, which is operated by the 323rd Family District Court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve a professional services contract between Connie Chitwood and Tarrant County to provide supervision and training to social work students performing court visits on awards under the guardianship program. This is under probate court number 1.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Nothing right now, Mr. Wright? Thank you. Ms. Glenn?
Moves to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, Ms. Glenn.
Good morning. Thank you very much. We have two additional items. The second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the 141st District Court. The court is losing their court reporter at the end of this month. That individual is leaving with 94 vacation hours. The court is requesting a waiver effective 8/1, fiscal impact of a little bit more than $3,800.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I mean, that's 12 days,
They've already selected a replacement.
and so basically then, did they select that from somebody within?
I'm
You don't-
not sure
not
if it's
sure.
an internal applicant. I did see the paperwork, but they're set to have her start actually on 8/1 if the court approves this waiver.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve changes to physician assignments in public health. Currently, public health has 5 project positions, which of course, as the court recalls, are temporary positions that are assigned currently to pandemic flu. And the funding for that area ends at the end of this month, and public health would like to move those positions to the bioterrorism area. And so that's the request, and there's no impact to the general fund.
That's also a grant-funded position?
Yes.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Lou,
you.
thank you very much for what you did out at the swimming hole. Y'all, your group did an excellent job. We appreciate it.
Mr. Beecham. Uh-oh.
Don't do it.
Don't throw it up here.
I have a feeling I know what that is.
Small token of appreciation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I came in today, I noticed that Commissioner Fickus was over here looking at the toilet paper bid.
It's interesting that you buy toilet paper by the inch, sir. Is there a restricted amount of inches you can use?
There's a formula?
Is there a procedure to check that? To be sure people are...
Commissioner Fickus has
Conform with
volunteered to
that.
be the quality control.
You actually divide
You got to give one of the attorneys, because they put out more of that, they have more of a need for that stuff than anybody else.
I was just wondering if our ethics laws allowed us to accept this.
It's under $25.
You'll put it in your office and use it, it's fine.
We have 7 items
Look at
for
our
consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-147, which is for the purchase of ganging stack chairs for the jury services area. Recommendation would be to award to SciTech Filing and Furniture Incorporated in the amount of $6,997.20.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-124. This is our annual contract for emergency vehicle equipment and supplies. The recommendation will be to award this bid on a per fixed discount from price list to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique. This is a bid that we've had a lot of success with in our cooperative area. We actually have 41 vendors that buy off this particular contract in Tarrant County. We always compare those prices in case you wonder from time to time with the other co-ops. And the discounts that we're receiving on this particular bid are from 35 to from 1 to 35% greater for Tarrant County than the closest cooperative.
Move for, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-125. This is our annual contract for the purchase of dump trucks, cabin chassis trucks, and haul trucks for use by the precincts. That recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
How many people buy off of that particular contract?
We'll probably have 25 to 30 different entities that purchase off that contract also.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our fourth item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-143, our annual contract for toilet paper. We are recommending award on a per unit price basis for item number 1 to Empire Paper Company, and item number 2, we're recommending rejection and seeking permission to rebid with revised specifications. The paper that we passed out, it truly is a new vendor, and there is a formula, believe it or not, Commissioner Fickus. There are larger rolls and smaller rolls, and you actually
You've
take
told
the
me more
roll.
than I want to know.
Pardon?
You probably told me more than I want. I just was curious that you buy it by the inch.
Just to be sure that the rolls are equal.
Oh,
What's your motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
As the new junior commissioner, you always get to approve the toilet paper.
Thank you. I realize that. Yeah, thank you.
okay, you're the next.
I will
Please.
second it. I will compliment you on the fact that it is 100% recycled
Recycled.
paper.
The second item,
I hope it's only recycled in certain ways.
I
Any
did,
other discussion about this?
No.
Please vote. The motion passes unanimously.
item number 5 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-156, the purchase of custom file folders for the county clerk's office. Recommendation be to award the low bidder, American Corporate Services, amount of $19,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 is also a bid award recommendation in regards to bid number 2008-159. This is a bid for the design and the installation of the fuel canopy for Precinct 3. That recommendation be to award the Tyson Building Corporation, amount of $82,600. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval as well as acceptance of the payment.
Move approval.
Second.
Yes.
This is for you.
I understand.
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner Fickus.
Right.
For
He's
for
still
Commissioner
thinking about
Fickus's
toilet
canopy.
paper.
Right.
Any other discussion? Please vote.
I do have a question on that. On the, what was the, did we had that insured, I'm assuming, or was that self-insured? Or-
Yes.
We actually have an insurance policy for our property still.
And what did it pay, do you know?
I'm not really sure. I'll have to get that information. I get fuzzy on what the actual retention or deductible is. So let me check on that for you.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is an item in regards to RFP number 2008-115 for disaster recovery services. We're recommending rejection of all proposals and seeking permission to reissue with revised specifications.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beecham. Ms. Lamb, come on down.
Thank you, Judge. I'm here today to ask that Commissioners Court consider a proposed change in scope related to the 2006 Transportation Bond Program for the East Rosedale project. This project was discussed in court last week and tabled. Fernando Costa with the City of Fort Worth Assistant City Manager is back again today to answer some of the questions that you raised last week regarding the impact of the streetcars on the proposed project.
Commissioner Brooks?
Judge, if you would allow me just a few minutes, Mr. Costa. This project is very important to Southeast Fort Worth. East Rosedale from I-35 to 820 is a major artery through a community that we are doing our best to redevelop. I recognize that our bond program did not give weight or credence to economic development or community enhancement projects. This one has generated so much controversy, both in the press and among county staff and members of the Commissioner's Court, that I'm going to solve this issue without asking you to take a position on it one way or the other. My community needs this project, and I have the ability to make it happen without a vote. So I'm going to do that this morning. I'm going to ask that this project be funded from the discretionary pot of dollars that is allocated to me from the bond program. I ask that the county administrator and that the transportation director proceed with preparing the proper documentation to make this happen, so that East Rosedale can become the gateway and the economic generator that section of the community needs. Texas Wesleyan University fronts on East Rosedale. It is important to that community that we be able to regenerate it in such a way that it attracts businesses, that it attracts new home ownership, that it attracts redevelopment dollars. There is more in my mind to building a road than traffic counts. And this is a prime example of that. So I commit $3.3 whatever it is million to make this project happen, and we can end the argument right here.
Now, let me ask one question, just so that I'll be sure. I mean, I know that we're pulling it from that main project, and we're pulling it now out of his discretionary funds that each one of the commissioners had. We probably still need to approve the project, even though it'll come out of his discretionary funds, just so that TxDOT will know that we've committed the funds formally. I see Maribel shaking her head.
What we will do, and I know that Ms. Chavez is here, I think she might want to address the court also on this. The funding vehicle to TxDOT is going to be the LAPAFA. And the LAPAFA.
Local Project Advanced Funding Agreement.
Got it.
And it's something that, it's an instrument that we use with TxDOT when we partner with them to, where they build the project, basically. We do not have that paperwork yet, but we expect to have it by next week. I think the letting on this is going to be on the 6th of August, so we can approve that LAPAFA next week when we have the written document. If there is a desire by the court to indicate that we are going to fund that, that's fine. The discretionary monies were monies that were set aside that each of the 4 commissioners could utilize for discretionary projects within their precincts. And so that's a courtesy that this court has given to each one of those. We'll have to come back to a formal vote simply because of the transfer of the funds.
You transfer our funds to TxDOT.
That's correct.
I have a comment, and I like the project. I don't have a problem with what we're doing. I don't like the process we have to go through. My only concern was when you mentioned a trolley down. When you go back to 4 lanes and you go put 2 lanes of trolley, you in effect don't have 4 lanes of free-flowing traffic. That is my concern, that we're going to go from 4 lanes now, which need improvement, and I love what Fort Worth is wanting to do. I think that will certainly enhance the neighborhood, but to restrict it at some point with trolley lanes and 2 lanes, to bring it back down to really only 1 free lane, full lane, I have a problem with. I read the mayor's letter, and I understand what he's saying, and nothing will be done without a study, but that's where my concern is. I truly believe, and discretionary dollars, the other dollars, same dollar, okay? It's taxpayers' money. It's not,
Well,
so that, and I commend Commissioner Brooks for making that sacrifice with his discretionary money, because he, like all of us, have so many needs for that. And I really hate to see him use that money for that.
So do I.
So, I agree. I don't think you should. But
so at this point in time, we're not going to take any action today.
Since we do not have the LAPAFA, there's not a need to take action. The money in order to give the indication to TxDOT will be through the LAPAFA. We thought we would have that today, but the document is not ready yet. It's still sitting in TxDOT. So if there is an indication that you wanted to at least a signal from the court that you intend to commit the money out of Commissioner Brooks' discretionary account, you're fully agendized to do something like that.
I have one question. Typically, we have gotten a direction from the court that they approved the change in scope, so that might be the one item that we could do today, is the change in scope, where you can wait and do it all next week.
The problem with that is that the change of scope now is not part of the bond package issue. It's a discretionary.
True enough.
So there's not a need for a vote to change the scope of the project.
If y'all need a motion to allow me to use my discretionary fund in the way I see fit, then I so move.
And if that's necessary, I will second that.
And so, Maribel, you're looking like you're anxious.
May I further complicate this process?
Sure, step on forward.
further complicated for us.
And I very much appreciate the opportunity to further complicate the process, but I think it's important for me to explain the department's position and to explain that in fact it's not a simple issue of that we just simply don't want to be flexible with the city or with the county. It's not that simple. You see, when we take a project through the public involvement process, particularly a project that has been declared a mobility project, we declare what we call a purpose and need. And that is important for the environmental process, for the public involvement process. And the purpose and need that was declared for this project was that we needed to widen a 4-lane facility to 6 lanes. And when we took it out to the public, we said, this is what is needed to be built. And consequently, in order to build a 6-lane facility, we needed to acquire right-of-way, additional right-of-way in which to put that 6-lane facility that the locals declared was a need. And through that right-of-way acquisition process, in many cases, we had to invoke eminent domain. And consequently, we took that through the legal process. Now, we do not invoke eminent domain lightly. We don't and should not take that lightly. And so when not only did we have to invoke eminent domain and tell some citizens that we had a need for their land, and we told the court systems that we needed that land, and it was because of this purpose and need. That's the predicament that I find myself in, is that when we use these mobility funds, we use these state and federal funds for mobility purposes. We declared a purpose and need, and we invoked eminent domain in order to accomplish that purpose and need. And if we were only going to build a 4-lane facility, if we were only going to rehabilitate or reconstruct what was already in the existing right-of-way, we wouldn't have had to have acquired all that additional right-of-way if all we were building was a 4-lane facility. So it's not a lack of flexibility on my part, and I really don't appreciate that some people didn't bother to call and try and get all of the facts. It's not a simple lack of flexibility. It is maintaining the integrity of the process and projects, because I will unfortunately do this several times when we have mobility projects and we have to widen or expand a highway facility. I declare through the environmental process a purpose and need, and I acquire right-of-way, and sometimes that means invoking eminent domain.
Maribel,
We acquired this right-of-way for that purpose and that need.
I appreciate your explanation, but our discussions here don't have anything to do with TxDOT's process or TxDOT's dollars. We're talking about what the county does with monies allocated by its bond program, and that's independent of what you do.
No, sir, and I do appreciate that, and I understand that. But I understand that some of your conversation and some of the criticism that I got was the lack of flexibility. And it's not a lack of flexibility, it's a lack of maintaining integrity in a process and doing what we told the public we were going to do.
As far as I'm concerned, it is what it is, and I'm trying to get to a solution that satisfies the people of Southeast Fort Worth.
And I think some of the delay is that the agreement, you know, it needs to state what it is that we're proposing to build and what it is that you're transferring funds or your local participation in. And so we probably do have to look over that agreement again to make sure that
Well, we'll go ahead and pass. I think that I want to be careful what we pass here today, because I just heard you say it's what we're saying.
Why
don't y'all work on your LAPAFA before we make a change in status that ends up complicating the LAPAFA?
Well, the discussion that I have had with many staff, city staff, for over several years, and a couple of council members is that so that we don't have a problem with the issue of how we acquired right-of-way is you let us build the facility that you asked us to build, and then if you want to come back and retrofit that facility, then that is certainly your call.
And so we are not involved in the retrofitting. We're involved in the first on the front end with TxDOT. What Fort Worth does with the road after that is not our concern.
And that is our position as well, Commissioner.
Wouldn't it not require the same right-of-way anyway? If they go to 4 lanes and with two parking lanes, it would be the same.
No, actually, you could have built that if you had wanted to just reconstruct that 4-lane facility. You probably could have built that all within the existing right-of-way. But in order for us to add those 2 outside lanes, and then obviously then put the utilities, relocate all those utilities out, then it did acquire additional right-of-way. We've got all the right-of-way in place. We've acquired it all.
May I ask a question? You said it's being paid for through mobility funds.
State mobility dollars.
So would that funding have been allowed with the proposed project from that pot of money, or would it have had to come from some other pot?
No, that was in the late 80s when this project actually got approved, but the criteria was very, very specific, and it was limited to really some metropolitan areas, and that was, and in fact, it was very specific. It was for expanding and adding capacity to urban thoroughfares, and it was about widening, adding capacity to a corridor.
What we went to the voters about our bond project, too, that we wanted to address mobility. And so that's where my concern has. The project is very nice, but my concern has been, is that what our bond money is supposed to be doing?
So I think at this point where we are is y'all are going to work on the LAPAFA, come back next week. That'll still be before your letting time, and you'll be comfortable with whatever is brought back next week. And then we can go forward from that.
I believe so, yes, sir. We will maintain this project in the scheduled letting that it was scheduled for.
So at this time, if it's all right, with Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Van Ravensway, we'll pull that motion back and wait till next week. Thank you.
Fine.
Item number 2.
Actually, we're going to
now
go
we can move all the way down to...
Wait a minute. I just want to assure the city of Fort Worth that we're going to build this road one way or the other. You can carry that message back. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. 3?
Yes, and Randy Skinner will present that item.
Good morning, members of the court. We are requesting your approval of an advanced funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the replacement of a bridge on Bowman Springs Road. This is part of the federal program whereby the federal funding sources will pay for 90%. The county will be responsible for the remaining 10%.
And to complete that project, which brings in the city of Arlington and the city of Kennedale and the state, I'm going to be using my discretionary funds to do the rest of the bridge, or the other bridge, and I guess that would be further north.
Correct. This agreement is simply for the replacement of the existing structure, and your discretionary funding will apply to the expansion.
So I move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus, you have an interlocal agreement?
Yes, we have an interlocal agreement, I think on paving with the city of South Lake for White's Chapel, for North White's Chapel, from 114 up to Dove.
So you're moving the approval of?
We approve this.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8L1A and B. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Please note that Commissioner Brooks is out of the room right now. Commissioner Johnson.
Move approval of item L2A and B, the approval of interlocal agreement with White Settlement ISD for the construction of bus turnaround at 8301 Down Drive.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments today? Then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second. A motion second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have an item we'd like to bring to the court this morning. This is item A. This concerns a briefing or an update on the Texas County and District Retirement System. Ms. Glenn is here to introduce the subject matter at this time.
Good morning again. This time of the year, we come to Commissioners Court to discuss with you the county's retirement plan through TCDRS. We talk to you about plan provisions. We talk to you about funding for the upcoming year. Last year, we had Amy Campbell with TCDRS here to do about a 10-minute presentation for you. We've asked Amy to come back again, and so I'll ask her to come forward, and she's already here. She has someone with her this morning. So I'll let Ms. Campbell go through this presentation. Of course, this is your opportunity to have an opportunity to revisit the plan, think about what we might want the plan to look like for 09. We're not asking the court for any action today. We will be back on next week to ask your approval for the plan for 2009. So, and I believe Ms. Campbell may have some additional handouts?
Yes, I think they're coming around. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here again. It's very kind of you to invite us back every year. I would like to, Christina, don't run away. Introduce Christina Acuna. She is the new representative for Tarrant County, and she has been since January. So from now on, she's going to be your person up here talking with you. I want to spend just a few minutes of your time talking about the plan today, and to let you know a little bit about where you stand and some of the changes that were made in last year's legislature and moving forward. So we know that the true cost of your plan is your benefits that are paid out, and our plan is funded in advance. Every month you all are sending in a required rate that's based on a percent of payroll, and these funds fund your benefits for your employees right now while you're in employ, while they are in employ. So that is sort of a comforting notion that all Tarrant County employees should know that the benefits will be there when they're ready to retire. Also, the cost is, of course, driven by the amount of benefit that you all promise. So with the pre-funding of the benefits, we know that benefits equals the contributions that you pay as well as the earnings that TCDRS pays out to employers on an annual basis. We know that as a member of TCDRS, employees are guaranteed through state statute at 7% rate of return. Employers are not. However, we do have a benchmark of 9% that we try and pay out. I have a typo, I apologize. It is 9% that we try and pay out on an annual basis. And so that means as a whole, TCDRS has to have a rate of return of 8%, and that allows us to pay our employees 7% and our employers 9%. Well, for the last 5 years, we've had no problem doing that. This year, I know you all are watching the news, you can't get away from it. Things might be a little bit different. But moving forward for 2009, Tarrant County's required rate is 10.74. You're currently paying 10.68% of payroll. The 10.74 for 2009 is based on year-end 2007 valuations, and it does not include any optional benefits that you might choose, like a COLA that you've done in many years in the past. So the 10.74 is the required rate without any added benefits. When we break that down, the normal cost rate of the rate that's required is 7.37, with an unfunded liability rate of 3.37. So the normal cost rate is just the cost to fund the benefits that you've promised. The unfunded liability is any actuarial gains or losses or any unfunded benefit increases that you've made.
How do you, what estimates do you use when you say over their entire career? When do you estimate that folks would retire? As soon as they're eligible, or?
Not necessarily. It's based on your demographics of your county right now, a snapshot on it every year. And in your plan summary, I can get that information for you. I don't have it right now. We know that with our closed amortization period, though, we closed it at 15 years. So any unfunded liabilities on a single year basis will be paid off in 15 years. So if you froze your plan as it is today and you didn't increase benefits and all of our assumptions sort of stayed the same, those liabilities would be paid off within 15 years. So really, the time span that you pay off a career employee that was probably here for 20, 25, 30 years will be paid off far in advance.
Okay.
Okay?
Have we, or do you know, has Tarrant County ever added additional funding for the COLAs that we've added through the years?
They have not, and that is in your packet, and I'd like to address that with you as we move through. They have never approved what we call an elected rate, which is actually choosing a rate higher than your required rate to help pay off those unfunded liabilities and sort of cushion your plan. But I'm going to spend, when we get to the COLA slide, I'd like to spend just a couple of extra minutes on that. Currently, when we calculate a retiree's benefit, it's based on eligibility. Currently, Tarrant County has the age of 60 with 8 years. That means that once an employee has 8 years of service, when they're age eligible at 60, they could be eligible to retire. Or we have the rule of 75, which is the years of service plus their age, and currently 30 years in any age. And there are enhancements to two of these eligibility criteria, and I'm going to go over those in just a moment. And then the matching rate that Tarrant County currently has is 200%, or for every $1 your employees are putting in, you all are matching $2. Determining the cost of the plan changes. This is a graph that is in your retirement plan assessment, and I included a copy of it in your packet, and you also received it in your almanac. But it's a 5-year history of your rate and what caused your rate to change. And those highlighted in red, we call that a negative plan experience. That would be benefit increase. And on the second line, you can see the block of red. The plan changes adopted for the last 3 years have been the 80% CPI COLA. And that's
if I'm an employee, I look at that red, the red is green and the green is red.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then if we look down in demographics, you can see that this year, you all had a little negative plan experience on demographics, and that could be because our assumptions assumed payroll growth that didn't quite make it, or you had more people retire than we thought you would, or you had more employees who separated service actually leaving their money with the plan. In the 2 prior years, you had nice positive plan experience, and I really lend that to payroll growth, and it was a great time of growth after the years 2001 and 2002. So you can see over the last 4 years, your rate has increased a little bit each year. Last year, we had a nice credit of interest allocation. Instead of just the 9%, we got 15%, so that helped out. But last year, you ended up with 10.68. This year, without the any plan changes adopted, the required rate will be 10.74.
Now, if I'm guessing, the plan changes adopted in each one of those 3 prior years are the COLA increases.
They're the 80% CPI COLAs.
And
yes, sir.
have there been any other changes that we've adopted?
No, there has not.
So explain to me down under the assumption and methods numbers, what assumptions or methods would change that would have generated the
The changes, well, if you look in 2006, 2007, you see a 0.85. Every 4 years, we do an experience study, and what our outside actuaries do, it's minimum, they actually look at the assumptions over the last 4 years that were made, and they take a snapshot on that 4th year. And, you know, the actuarial assumptions are their best guesses. So if they've assumed better, then you get a credit, and if they didn't assume enough, then you get a ding. What's happened is mortality, and this is coming down, we just heard from the actuaries at our Prospectus conference last week, that mortality is much higher than it has been. So these dings in 2006, 2007 was based primarily on mortality, people living longer than expected. In 2007, 2008, you have a positive plan experience, and for Tarrant County, that was the closed amortization period and the extra 5% of interest allocation that TCDRS credited you all to offset any costs. You all didn't have any costs associated with that close. If you look on the 3rd line down, investment return, that's a 0 all the way across. That means that TCDRS hit its benchmark of the 9% credited to employer accounts each one of those years. So it wasn't more, it wasn't less. It was the 9%.
Okay.
All right. This will show you a rate sheet based on adopting an 80% CPI COLA for plan year 2009. You can see the current plan as you look down through, the total rate on line 10 is 10.74. If you all were to approve another 80% CPI COLA, the rate would be 11.09, and that would be the required rate for 2009. In your packet, we included a rate sheet that also includes the 20 years in any age. And I can talk about that with you as well if you want when we get to that. But this is just a basic rate sheet that shows cost of the 80% CPI and the rate increase.
So again, and you alluded to this earlier, I want to make sure I did grasp that. Somebody comes to work for us at age 21. They may work for us for 40 years or 30 years, but you're going to anticipate one, that they're going to work with us for some number of years, maybe the 30 or whatever, but you're going to fund that total liability over a 15-year period of time.
Correct. Correct. Now, certainly if they outwork Tarrant County's demographics of retirement eligibility and years worked, then there would be some added benefit on top of that. You know, that's one of the actuarial assumptions in demographics is what is the normal working lifetime of a Tarrant County employee? What are the years of service, most common years of service? When do people retire most often? So that's part of the assumptions. Now, there are certainly going to be people that will retire earlier than that, those common assumptions, and those that will work beyond that. And so there might be adjustments for that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? So as you manage your benefits, your rates are directly linked to the benefits that you provide. Increasing any benefits, of course, is going to increase a required rate, and reversely, decreasing benefits could result in a rate decrease, but any decrease is moving future only. You can't take away benefits you've already provided. And then keep in mind that your stability of your rate comes with the stability of the benefits that you provide. And we have tools in place to really help control stability of rates, especially with continually passing COLAs. So this is your current benefits that Tarrant County offers. You have an employee deposit rate of 7%. That's the highest that you can do. The rates are 4, 5, 6, or 7. You have an employer matching rate of 200%. The span there is 100 to 250%, and I have slides to support this after this. Your prior service credit is 150%. Your retirement eligibility is 8 years of service, the age of 60, or 30 years of service in any age, or the rule of 75. You have adopted repeatedly 80% CPI-based COLAs, and you did the last one for 2008. You have survivor death annuity. That means that every employee, once they reach 4 years of service, they have earned the right for a death benefit for their beneficiaries that includes the county match. Optional benefits that you have adopted is the military service credit. That means that once one of your employees has reached vesting, which is 8 years, and they have served actively in the military, TCDRS will grant them time, not dollars, towards retirement eligibility. The last buyback study that was approved by Tarrant County was in 1997. And then again, the cost of living adjustments. And there are 2 optional benefits that we have that Tarrant County has not adopted. And one of those is the partial lump sum payment at retirement. And that is simply allowing your employees to take out a portion or all of their money at retirement in the form of a lump sum and receive the county matching dollars in the form of a monthly pension. So that's an option, as well as the optional group term life, which is, it mirrors a term life contract that gives employees a benefit of 1 times their annual salary, and if you have it retirees, it's a $5,000 one-time benefit. It's not really a life insurance. It's held by TCDRS, and it's held in trust. So it's not a portable life insurance contract. It's not something that they apply for. It simply is calculated on your employee base and payroll, and it's paid off a percentage of payroll, just like the retirement plan. But it's a whole different pot of money.
And on that particular one, is the lump sum paid to the beneficiaries at the death of the?
No, on the lump sum, that is actually to the employee
Not the lump sum, I'm sorry. The optional group life, term life insurance?
Yes.
That would be paid to the beneficiary at the death?
At the time of death.
Is
Correct.
that in addition to the retirement benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
It is in addition to.
Now, we also have another group life. Is she over there? Well, there you are. That would be in addition. The reason we probably haven't selected this one is because we have another through our regular health benefits. We have something that will allow up to 2 times, I believe, isn't it?
Well, we have, what you're referring to is just the group term life that we have through Fort Dearborn. That benefit, Amy, is for active employees. The options that active employees have is up to 2 times. We do have some employees that are grandfathered at 3 times, but that's not available if you don't currently have it. And it's capped at $200,000, but that's only for our active employees.
Okay. And so, but you said on this one, if we were to, for the retirees, it's capped at $5,000?
$5,000, one-time benefit paid out in lump sum to beneficiary on file.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Judge, do we not provide a basic death benefit, though, for our employees? Is it $50,000?
That's the life. It's basic. It's a basic life benefit, and it's capped at $50,000. It's one time your annual salary, capped at $50,000. That's what the county provides. The benefit that I.
But then in addition, so
but in
county gives
addition,
you 50.
And then you can purchase the optional up to 2 times. And again, there are some employees that have 3 times their
But
salary.
it's still capped at 50.
Well,
The optional is capped at $200,000. The basic is capped at $50,000.
And the basic is your salary up to 50.
Up to $50,000.
Okay.
And that's been in place for several years.
Okay.
Tell me about the partial lump sum payment of retirement. How does that work?
The way
Obviously, we're not doing that.
No, and very few of our of the 582 do the partial lump sum. What it does is it allows a provision in the plan for a person once they at retirement to take out a portion or 100% of their contribution, which includes their 7% plus all the interest that they've earned, and then to receive a monthly pension for the rest of their life based on whatever's left of their money and the county matching dollars. Now, what this does is it greatly reduces that monthly benefit that they're going to receive because it's taking a lot of money out of their pot, because our plan works differently than like that of the state or the teachers. It's a cash-based plan, so the more you have in your account at retirement, the more matching funds are coming in, the more money we're going to have to pay out over a lifetime.
Okay. Takes a third out, in effect.
Mm-hmm.
Does it directly reduce the benefit by a third, or does it reduce the benefit by more than a third?
It could be proportional. It depends on how much that person takes out, because they can just take out a portion
all the way
or all
up
of
to
it.
a third.
Well, really almost up to, right. You're absolutely right, up to a third of it. They can take out just a portion of it or all of those monies, excluding the 200% match. Yes. So this is retirement eligibility. Last year's legislature approved an enhancement to the age 60 and the years of service. We now have a 5-year vesting period at TCDRS. Now remember, vesting in TCDRS means something different than like a 401k. It simply means that your employees have earned the right to retire someday. It doesn't mean they can work for 5 years, quit, take their money, and take the county money. That's not what it means. It just means that once they have worked 5 years, they've earned the right to retire someday. Right now, you all are at 8. And so if they work beyond that, of course, they'll hit retirement at some point in time. If they only work 8 years currently, and they walk out the door, they can come back when they're age 60 and retire. So it's just earning that right to retire someday. And then the age of 75, you all have. The other option was the age of 80, and you enhanced that years ago. And then any age with 20 years of service and 30 years of service.
So right now, we have 60 and 8,
Rule
or
of
75,
and 30 years in any age.
and 30 years at any age.
So,
Now, remember, the problem, again, red light, green light. The red light on our side is that if we make them eligible for retirement, at any point in time we make them eligible for retirement, that also makes them eligible for retirement under our benefit program.
Correct.
And our big cost right now is the health insurance side of our retirees.
Correct. Correct.
That are under 65, because we're on board for that insurance under the self-insurance plan as opposed to a Medicare supplement.
Correct.
Which we provide for our retirees over age 65.
Correct. And we at TCDRS really caution our courts and our board of directors to really consider enhancing eligibility benefits, because it really can have a swing in costs as well as turnover. And these 3 eligibility rules, once they're enhanced or lowered, it's a non-rescindable benefit change. So you can't ever move it back up. Out of the 582 employers that we have, 95 currently have the 20 years in any age. So it's not a majority, it's still certainly a minority. Any questions?
you said that if somebody works 8 years and goes away, then when they reach age 60, they can retire. Do they have to retire at age 60, or could they wait to retire at a later date?
They can wait till retire. If they've hit the vesting, they can wait till they're 70 and a half, and then they either have to retire or take their money out.
Okay.
And that's an IRS rule. But no, they don't have to retire at age 60. Okay, so I sort of went over this before. I'm just going to hit on it briefly. These are the basic plan provisions that you all have control over and you can make changes on. You have an employee deposit rate at 7%. The only thing you could do with that is reduce it, and that would be because of budgetary purposes usually that you would do that. The county matching rate is set at...
When you say reduce it, I mean, basically, if we reduced it, that, in effect, I guess, in addition to reducing theirs, it would reduce our accrual because we wouldn't then be looking at as much of a
matching dollars.
And I guess the only thing I would say is because I talk with the 20-plus year employees every month, they're very glad at the point that they're in at that point in time that we're withholding 7. They weren't too happy about it when they were in the 0 to 5 year range, but they got happier with it as they got to the
Well, and as time goes on, most employees, and going out and speaking with them, most want to do more than the 7. But legislative.
We do that through deferred comp.
Exactly, through the 457. Exactly. Okay, the matching rate can be anywhere from 100% up to 250%. Currently, you're at 200%. So enhancements you could make is to upping the match in 5% increments, anywhere from 200, 205, 210. Those increases could be made future only, or past and future, or retro and future. So that's one of the decisions that you all have to consider on an annual basis. We have very few counties that are at 250%, just a handful.
Are most at 200?
I have to look at numbers. The average is 168, believe it or not, and that's not even a number, but the average is at 168. We have a handful that are at 250. County-wise, I can probably count them on one hand. So the majority of it's just an average of 168, because I know a lot at 100 and a lot at 200. So.
Well, and again, as we had our conversations with Hay, you'll recall that they said that our benefits are where we excel. And you and I, through some of our meetings at TAC, I think, came to the realization that COLA is a big plus for our retirees, where we increase that COLA every year.
And I think you all can take great care in considering your entire benefit package, not only with your current retirement, but with your retirees and your retiree health care packages. So everything needs to fit in its place, and that's where the considerations take place.
Thank you.
And then COLA. We have 2 types of COLA. We have a flat rate COLA and a CPI-based COLA. This year, our flat rate is capped at 4%. And what happens is our board sets our cap each year at our March meeting, and it's based on the year before's inflation. Inflation last year was above 3.5%, so they capped it at the next whole integer. Christina calculated inflation for period ending June 2008. Inflation so far for this year is 4.24%. So inflation is on the rise, and that's one reason your COLA rate is a little bit higher this year, because inflation was higher last year than it was before. So at this time, I would ask you to look in your packet and to look at the rate sheet that looks like this and the COLA, and it'll show you the cost of the COLA, increasing your required rate to $11.09. The cost for this year's COLA is 0.35%. In years past, it has not been quite that high, so as inflation increases, the cost of COLAs can increase as well. And then I also included from our decision support team these 2 graphs. And this shows that if Tarrant County, and this is based on assumptions staying the same as they are today, and based on 3.5% inflation. This shows that if Tarrant County continues to pass that 80% CPI COLA over the next 15 years, how the rate creeps from where it is today at 11.9 if you choose a COLA today, up to nearly 18% 15 years from now. And that's just because COLAs add layers of unfunded liability. So each year the COLA is passed, it takes another 15 years to pay it off. And we're going to have more and more retirees. This is only based on 3.5% inflation as well. The other handout with the dotted blue line shows that if you all are interested, and I can come back and do a whole presentation on this only, if you're interested in controlling the cost of your COLAs over time, you do have the availability to pay what we call a higher elected rate. And that's just paying in more per month into the plan to help pay down those unfunded liabilities, to prepay some of those unfunded liabilities for future COLAs, and it controls that rate so it doesn't get out of control. And it'll show you that although it does increase over 15 years, you can control it by paying a higher elected rate, and then it would drop down and it would start over the next 15 years. We had a really good presentation on COLAs at our Perspectives Conference. That's available to bring here to you with just that if you're interested.
I'd certainly like to see what that number is.
The elected rate? It is, the elected rate that would hold you steady and you would not go over is 14.5%.
And so
14.5% of
Payroll.
payroll.
And we're currently anticipating putting in 10.68%.
11 point,
For
probably
2009, if you elect the COLA, it'll be 11.09. Currently, for 2008, you're paying 10.68.
Okay, so what we're talking about is almost 4% of payroll.
well, 11.9 to what, 14 point?
I'm sorry.
14.5.
Okay,
So about
it's not
3%.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty, it would
That's a
be a
big
pretty
jump.
substantial number.
Right.
We
But you-
work up to that?
Excuse me?
Could we make less than that significant jump to begin
Certainly.
with and work into it?
Absolutely, you can do that. I mean, this is just the best-case scenario that we show, but certainly you can choose something less than that and work up to it. And then we just look at the plan on an annual basis and see what kind of experience you had
We could,
to
in
get
any
to that.
given year, contribute any additional amount that we wanted to, and it would have an effect. It would just not, you know, what you're saying is kind of an evened out effect, as opposed to us saying, we're going to allocate X amount of
Lump
dollars
sum.
just at the end of the year or at the beginning of a year,
Correct.
depending upon how our past year went or how our future revenues look from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lump sum is always an option. Higher elected rate, usually, since it's a percent of payroll, it usually pays in a little bit more money, and it's seen immediately that next year when you do a lump sum, you have to wait, to see it in your plan assessment, because we're always 2 years behind. The numbers we're talking about for 2009 are based on 2007. So it takes a little longer to actually see the positive, but it goes directly to that unfunded liability immediately when you do it.
So does that have an effect on the next year's annual return contribution rate, or is it separated from the excess funding? Is it kind of pulled out of the model so that if you put in extra money, then next year your annual determined contribution rate would be lower as a result of that, unless you segregate it?
What happens when you do, yes and no. A lump sum that, let's say you all had extra money at the end of this year and you paid in a lump sum December 1st or September 1st, whenever you wanted to do it. It would not reduce your annual determined contribution rate for plan year 2009 because we're basing those numbers on a 2007 experience. What it would do is reduce your annual contribution rate for 2010 because it would be based on year-end 2008. So we're just 2 years behind. It's a lag. It's a lag. Now, it certainly would receive the earnings allocation and all that. You just wouldn't see it in your contribution rate for 2009. It would be lagging. Whereas when you do a little bit of a elected higher rate, you see that, immediately. Okay? Any questions on COLA? Legislature last year enhanced the CPI COLA. It allows us to go back 10% up to 100%. We used to only be able to do 30 to 100%. You all are at 80%, but you certainly have the availability to move it up to 100%. And here's what we were just talking about, the higher elected rate and the lump sum. Choosing a higher elected rate simply gives you a cushion for any benefits that you're considering in the future. It also helps to pay down those unfunded liabilities in less than 15 years. It raises your funded ratio just a little bit every year, and it's directly to those unfunded liabilities as well as that lump sum payment. That's all I have for you today. May I answer questions or summarize benefits any other way?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And again, we're not asking for action today. What we're planning to do is to bring back this item next week for action.
Thank you.
Your Honor, that's all we have this morning. You do have a speaker.
Yes, we have an audience participation form from Ann Sutherland. Ann, you want to come on down and please state your name and the address for the record.
My foot went to sleep while I was listening to that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I have, my husband and I spent a lot of time, as I know you have this year, talking about JPS and the changes that have been made. And, You had a lot to do with those changes, and I'd like to express my appreciation and that of my husband for the work that you've done. There's obviously a lot more coming, but as you know, the change is overwhelming in attitude of the people, and I think we're now moving along the right track.
Could you speak up just a little bit?
Yes, I certainly can. I used to be too loud, so I'll speak a little more loudly now. The purpose of this short presentation is to suggest to you that a larger tax reduction is possible for 1 year than you may have considered. And I'm going to go through this very fast because it's late. Table 1 shows you that the surpluses have grown inordinately over the last 7 or 8 years, and I know that you know that. The purpose of talking to you about this is to show you what the impact of those might be. And I should tell you there's a couple of small typos in here, but I don't think there's anything very significant. Table 2 on the next page shows the median number. The question you have to decide, and it's not an easy one, is how much surplus do they need? And we've been hearing numbers like 1/4 cent, 1/2 cent, 1 cent. And our purpose in sharing this with you is to suggest that there could be a 1-year reduction of much more than that. To measure the appropriateness of some such reduction, Table 2 presents a median number of days cash on hand by U.S. hospitals, which is put out by Merit Research. And in the latest number that they've published is 2007, 150 days of cash on hand. Table 3 presents the median number of days of cash on hand by JPS compared to national hospitals. And I have to tell you, the last 3 years I constructed myself, I think they're correct, but they were not published by Merit. So these are, I guess we think there are about 287 days of cash on hand in your unrestricted reserves. I measured that against the expenditures per day compared to the unrestricted, unencumbered reserves. 287 days is a little over 3/4 of a year. So a reasonable person might well conclude that there's too much money here. And so on Table 4, we tried to put together some...
3/4 of a year. Let me just... Oh, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
287 over 365. I said it in here. I think it's 77%. Actually, you want to wait for that?
No, unfortunately, I can't ask you any questions because we weren't posted today. So
Okay.
I'll just have to let you go ahead and...
Okay. I noticed Robert was looking at this when he has his calculator out, so he may have comments on it if you want to give him a chance another time. Table 4 is the impact of different property tax levels on the JPS reserves. And this is the part that I think is so interesting. If you chose to eliminate all property taxes next year for 1 year only related to JPS, you still have 120 days in reserve. If you eliminated 15 cents, you'd still have 179, which is above the median. I know that you want to go, and I may be getting a ticket because I'm not parked. I didn't put enough quarters in. But I think there are several good reasons for this. The most obvious one is that the taxpayers put this money in to serve the indigent, and they aren't being used to serve the indigent because there's so much of it. Instead, they're being used for investment. And you can make an argument that the taxpayers should not be putting money into anybody's bank account for investment when the Constitution says that the purpose of this taxes are to serve the indigent. I have other suggestions down there, and you can read them yourself. One final thing is that it seems clear to many of us that JPS is going to be expanding services dramatically, and I know they will, and they're working as hard as they can on it. And my last line on the 4th page, the proposed expansions by management for next year are only 6.6 million, and the proposed budget is expected to have a reserve of almost 30 million. I would remind you that in the last few years, the budget surpluses have been approximately 3 times what they were budgeted as. So I don't know what the budget's going to be next year any more than I do this year, but this year they're looking at 77 million, and I think the budget was 26, and I think that number is going to go up because it was printed just before Congress wiped out the Medicaid fee reduction. That's all I have. I know this is not easy for you to think about. I'm glad I don't have to make a decision, but I felt they were important considerations, and I hope that you welcome at least the opportunity to think about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. We cannot respond because it wasn't on our budget or on our agenda today. We will, however, be discussing the budget, and I believe JPS is to be, are they to be here?
They are going to be here in about 2 weeks.
And I believe their budget hearing is this weekend?
They have a Saturday budget retreat. Yes, they do.
It will be, where they will be taking up a lot of this, and then we've asked them to come and make a presentation to us prior to us actually approving their budget.
That's correct.
Which will occur, I believe, on the 16th of September.
Our timeline is that the final approval of the hospital district's budget and tax rate is September 16th. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, again, we thank you for coming today. I know we'll take this all into consideration, and we'll be discussing it at length probably over the next month from that standpoint. Thank you. I would also, just as a mention, I think we talked about September 2nd, that being the Tuesday after Labor Day, us not having a meeting.
We will be needing to have a meeting that date.
We will have to have a meeting that day?
Yes, sir, we will.
September the 2nd?
September 2nd. Because of the Truth and Taxation, there's a requirement that we have public hearings in a certain time period before we pass the tax rate, and September 2nd is one of those.
For some reason,
I'm
on my
still-
computer, I have no court that day.
Yeah,
Well, we had talked about that. Could we do it a week before?
Well, let us do this. Why don't you, let us take a look at your calendars, and we'll come back to you on this. We did research it. You'd ask us to do that, and we'll just need to look at it one more time.
Okay.
I need to erase that.
The Commissioners Court, I wouldn't change your electronic computer calendar over yet.
I can correct it again.
Commissioners Court will now recess the open session and proceed to closed sessions to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from closed session, we'll now hear the following.
Thank you. Under item D1, we're requesting authorization for the District Attorney's Office to make demand upon the surety, West American Insurance Company, as well for completion of the contract that's described in the Atkins Brother contract, to file suit if necessary against Atkins and the surety or counterclaim if necessary if the surety fails to complete the project.
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Is that it?
That's it at this time, Your Honor.
All right.
Hey, John. I'll go back to second. That's not what I was talking.
All right.
So, I read that. And I figured you were talking about.